life happens. Let's just know this up front. Life happens. And we all experience different life happenings. So how do we deal with life during the pit times? Number one, stay strong in the pit. Now, as I wrote these, I thought, boy, if you would have told me to stay strong when I was in the pit in June and July of 2020, as motivated and energized as I can be, I would have told you that's a tough one. Boy, that's tough, because I didn't know. There was a lot of unknowns. I didn't know I was going to come out of it. I was told I would come out of it strong. I was told that the comeback is greater than the setback. I was told to stay strong, but honestly, that was a tough one for me. But it had to be done. I had to remain strong. Hey, this is Greg McAfee, and welcome to the Greg McAfee Show. Now let's get started. Hi, Greg McAfee here, and welcome to the Greg McAfee Show. Have you ever been in the pit? The pit of life? Have you ever been thrown into the pit or thrown yourself into the pit? Well, you know, there's a Bible story about Joseph, his brothers throwing him in the pit and leaving him for dead, basically. But we're going to talk about that, because if you haven't been in the pit yet, one day you will be in the pit. And we're going to talk about how to react when you're in the pit and what to do about it. So, as always, if you guys have not subscribed to the YouTube or to the pod channel, feel free to do so, because each week I put out this content because I really believe I want to see everyone achieve more, be more successful. So hit that subscribe button right there and turn on your notifications so each and every Tuesday, when I put out a new episode, you'll be one of the first to see it. So, I've told the story a couple times actually on this podcast about last year in June of 2020, with COVID going on and everything going on, I was basically thrown into a pit. I said something that was very insensitive on my personal Facebook. It was taken out of context and went completely viral. We lost a handful of employees. We actually lost thousands of customers, which many have come back to us. Not all, but many. And we lost some major sponsorship partnerships we had with a children's hospital and a local university, a couple universities actually, and a couple charities that we have helped raise hundreds of thousands of dollars for. But anyway, this is where we find ourselves, and I'm going to relate to this topic big time and share with you what I did when I was in the pit and just how I got out of the pit. So first of all, you know, everyone here listening, we've been raised differently. You know, you could have had a very rough childhood. You could have been abused, not just physically, but you could have been, physically is bad enough. You could have been abused emotionally, and mentally, and everything else that goes along with that. So everyone here has been raised differently. You could have been diagnosed with a terrible illness, or your children could have been diagnosed with a terrible illness, or your parents could have been diagnosed with a terrible illness or disease. You could have business problems. You could be going through really hardcore business problems right now, and you just feel like you're in the pit. Or you could have been, you could have threw yourself in the pit some way with doing something wrong. or doing something stupid. We all do stupid things. But most of us, you have found yourself in the pit. And like I said, if you haven't, one day you will. It just happens to us. So what is a pit? I don't know. Max Lucado, who wrote a really good book that helped me when I was in the pit, and it's called You'll Get Through This. Whatever this is, you'll get through this. I recommend this book highly. If you're going through some tough times, this book really helped me. This was one of the things I did that helped me get out of the pit. It actually comes with a study guide. I went through the study guide twice. I read the book twice. I went through the study guide. It really helped me. And basically, one of the slogans of this book basically is, you'll get through this. It won't be painless. It won't be quick. But God will use this mess for good. Don't be foolish or naive, but don't despair either. With God's help, you will get through this. So this was a great book. I recommend it highly. You'll Get Through This by Max Lucado. And Max has written several books, and they're all good. So the pit is a cold, damp, dark place where we find ourselves at times. And there are no easy exits. The only exit in a pit is up. And you have to climb out of the pit. And for most people, that's exactly what takes place. They don't jump out of the pit. It's not a fast climb out of the pit. It's a very slow crawl out of the pit. I'm going to talk to that. I'm going to talk to you more about that as we go. But it's important, as stupid as this sounds, it's important that you stay in the pit for a little while and learn from it, or learn something. Like I said, that you could be in the pit, might not even be your fault. Somebody threw Joseph in the pit, and other than him being a little bit cocky and bragging that he had a dream and that one day his family would bow down and worship him, other than being a little cocky, he didn't do anything wrong. But he was thrown into the pit. And he had to stay in the pit a little while and learn, and God just continued to bless him in the pit. So he kind of, if you read the story, Joseph went from the pit, to the palace, to the prince of Egypt. Life happens. Let's just know this up front. Life happens. And we all experience different life happenings. So how do we deal with life during the pit times? Number one, stay strong in the pit. Now, as I wrote these, I thought, boy, if you would have told me to stay strong when I was in the pit in June and July of 2020, as motivated and energized as I can be, I would have told you that's a tough one. Boy, that's tough, because I didn't know. There was a lot of unknowns. I didn't know I was going to come out of it. I was told I would come out of it strong. I was told that the comeback is greater than the setback. I was told to stay strong, but honestly, that was a tough one for me. But it had to be done. I had to remain strong. Now, I will tell you this. There were a couple. I don't get depressed often. It takes a lot for me to get actually depressed, and for me to be depressed, it could be totally different than for you to be depressed. When I get depressed, I just get down a little bit, and I kind of, I'm thinking negatively, or I'm just down. But then I spring back, and I spring back strong. Not everybody can do that. I get that. So in order to stay strong in the pit, you must believe that you'll get through this, no matter what the outcome is. And we're going to talk about sometimes it's tough. There may not even be the opening. When you look up, you can't even see the opening. It's dark, and it can be scary. I mean, I was scared of losing my entire company. When you have 5 employees walk out on you, and you're a 40 man shop, and 5 walk out, and you start customers starting calling in by the hundreds every day, canceling their maintenance agreement, and then the big partnerships with you that you have with these big universities and hospitals, it hits the business page of the Dayton Daily News that McAfee gets dropped. That was scary. I didn't know if I would be able to stay in business. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if all my employees would leave. What if they all left? I mean, Greg can't do it all, that's for sure. So yeah, it's okay to have a little fear on what's going on. And you also need to know, while you're staying strong in the pit, that things can still go wrong even once you get out of the pit. I mean, there's no guarantee that when you crawl out of the pit that everything's fine. You're partially still in the pit. You're just not physically in it anymore. So you've worked your way out of the pit, but there's no guarantee everything's going to be fine. As a matter of fact, it could get worse. So how do you handle that? Well, number one, just stay strong in the pit. For me, I did a lot of prayer. For me, I did a lot of Bible study. For me, I did a lot of consulting with Christian leaders, and I got help. That's what I did. For Greg just to be able to do it on his own and stay positive and pull yourself up by the bootstraps, it didn't work. That didn't work for me. I needed more. I needed good counsel. I needed lots of prayer. I needed to rely on God more than I ever have. That's what worked for Greg. Number 2, make adjustments while you're in the pit. What needs fixed? For me, it was going to be stop saying very insensitive things on Facebook. I mean, I didn't even make a post on Facebook or any social media. I didn't make a post anywhere for several months. I completely got off of it for a while and had to regroup. Now, am I still outspoken? Yes, I am. And that's how I'm made. And that's what I do. I challenge people all the time. I'm thanked often for being able to challenge people the way I do. But I'm very sensitive to what I say now and how I say it. So while you're in the pit, these adjustments are what needs fixed and what do you need to stop doing? And adjust what you say to yourself. The comeback is stronger. The comeback is always stronger than the setback. And I believe that. And when I read that and I heard that, I believed it. And a good friend of mine made a sign, which is still on my wall today in my office. The comeback is always stronger than the setback. And I believed it. So you need to start adjusting what you tell yourself, because what you tell yourself is very important. I read a book one time years ago. I don't know who the author is, but I read a book called Be Careful What You Say to Yourself, because it's that important. What you say to yourself is extremely important. And you need to tell yourself, I'm going to get out of this, and eventually it's going to be better. I realize it's not going to be better overnight, but it's going to be better. And then these are called I am statements. I am statements are extremely powerful. They may not seem helpful at first, but if you continue to say them, your brain goes to work. I mean, God made our brain. It's still much smarter than any computer possible that can be made. It's much smarter and retains more than any computer that man can make. Our brain is just unreal. And if we would possibly learn to tap into the source, it's amazing what we can do. But here are some I am statements. I am strong enough to keep going. That's a very positive statement you need to tell yourself when you're in the pit. I am strong enough to keep going. I am brave enough to get through this. I didn't let my fear bog me down. Yes, I was scared of the future of what was going to happen. I didn't know what was going to happen. And so I had some fear there. But I didn't let fear pull me down. So I was brave enough to get through it. Here's another I am. I am not afraid of my feelings, and with time, I will feel better. I will feel better. So I am good, and I deserve to be loved. You might be in the pit because someone said they didn't love you anymore. I mean, it could have been a parent. It could have been a spouse. Who knows? Could have been a child. Could have been one of your children. And you're in the pit. I am good and I deserve to be loved. And I will find a way to get better. I will find a way to get better. And I am capable and will do great things. See, when you start filling your mind with these I ams and I wills, your life will change. Because we talk so negative to ourselves. When you start filling your mind with positive things like I am and I will, and then you start relying more on God, which you may have not relied on Him enough lately, your life will change. So we've got stay strong in the pit, make adjustments in the pit, and now realize that you are still loved in the pit. God loves you. Others love you. There could be family members that love you, hopefully, but not always. And it's hard to realize because you're beating yourself up so much when you're in the pit, but others do love you and God loves you. And also realize you have support. Now let me talk to you about having support while you're in the pit. It depends on what you're in the pit for. But a lot of people don't know what to say to you while you're in the pit. A lot of my good friends didn't know what to say to me while I was in the pit. Did they support me? Yeah, they supported me, but I didn't hear from them. They didn't know what to say. They didn't know what to do. For some, they didn't want to be involved. If I involve I like Greg, but if I involve myself with him, then maybe everybody thinks I think the same thing he put on Facebook, which was taken out of context, etc. But that doesn't matter. You got to realize when you're in a pit, not everybody gathers around you and encourages you. That's just a fact. Now, since I've been through the pit, I challenge all my friends and anyone I ever talk to, when one of your friends or family members in the pit, you need to support them. Let them know, either just call them and say, hey, I'm praying for you, or I'm thinking about you, or hey, is there anything you need? That's support right there. But I did have a group of people that gathered around me, and we are closer friends today than we were before this happened. And that's a cool thing. It really is. So hang on to the ones who support you. Hang on to that positive. And don't go out looking for others to support you, because it's not going to happen. Just hang on to the ones who are supporting you. And number 4, be faithful in the pit. Like I said, some of you haven't prayed in many years. I don't know. Some of you may have never prayed. It just depends on how you were brought up. But rely on God. If you don't know Him, now's a great time to get to know Him. Humble yourself before Him. Try to see Him. Try to realize He's there for you. And if you know Him, it's probably a great time to cry out to Him and let Him know you need Him more now than ever. It's a great place to start over. When you're in the pit, it's just a great place to start over. And pit stop your dreams or goals, but only temporarily. I just want you to know that. The pit stops your goals or dreams, but only temporarily. For me, it took me working through a few days of depression to where my best friend said my voice even sounded different. I was just so down. At one very small, short point in my depression, I was just ready to sell my company and move away. I mean, that's how, for me, that's pretty low. Okay. And that's what it took. So anyway, but it's okay to be down. You got to experience downness, I should say. And then number 5, you need to gradually climb out of the pit. So we do need to spend some time in the pit. We do need to learn more while we're in the pit. But we need to climb out. We don't need to spend too much time in the pit. If you spend too much time in the pit, honestly, it not only leads to depression, but it could lead to suicide very easily, and we don't want that. So you got to really balance out. You've got to spend some time in the pit. It's okay to be down. It's okay to think things through. It's okay to learn. Definitely okay to pray. Definitely okay to get some counsel, all that kind of stuff. But you got to work your way out of the pit. You got to climb out of it, and you got to get back. You got to get back where you were, and then you've got to get back. You will eventually, if that's your goal, you will eventually become even stronger than you were. The pit does something about not only at first it weakens you, but then it can strengthen you. Number 6, forgive those who hurt you. Forgiveness is the best gift of Christianity. Forgive those who hurt you, even if the one who hurt you is you. You have to forgive yourself sometimes. We have to forgive ourselves. We can't be holding a lot of guilt and shame. There is guilt and shame. Some people do things where there's a lot of guilt and shame, but you got to forgive yourself. If you know God, He will forgive you if you ask and repent and all that stuff, but you've got to forgive yourself, and you got to forgive those who hurt you. As a matter of fact, you can't move on, and you will definitely not be any stronger than you were until you forgive. You will definitely not have a strong comeback if you don't forgive. Forgiving does many things. I'm going to read this here. Forgiving does many things. It increases energy and improves your attitude. Forgiveness is not just about saying the words. It's an active process in which you make a conscious decision to let go of negative feelings, whether the person deserves it or not. Just because someone doesn't deserve, if you think they don't deserve forgiveness, you still need to forgive them. That's part of the forgiveness process. I don't know if they need forgiveness, but I'm going to forgive them anyway. Because when I forgive them, I'm helping me. I'm not forgiving them for their sake. I'm forgiving them because of my sake. And as you release the anger and resentment and hostility, you'll begin to feel a compassion and sometimes even an affection for the person who wronged you. I don't know about you, but I've read several stories where actually someone in a family was murdered and a person forgave the person who murdered them and actually visited them in prison. Now that's forgiveness. Studies have found that some people are just naturally more forgiving. Consequently, they tend to be more satisfied with their lives and have less stress, less depression, less anxiety, less anger, and less hostility. Get that? That's how powerful forgiveness is. And people who hang on to the grudges and they won't forgive, they're more likely to experience severe depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, as well as several health conditions. But that doesn't mean that they can't train themselves to act healthier. Now get this, 62% of American adults say they need more forgiveness in their personal lives. This was in an article from Johns Hopkins Hospital. So you've got, everyone's going to get in the pit in life. Someone's going to throw you in the pit. You're going to do something stupid and throw yourself in the pit. But you're going to be in the pit. And I just gave you 6 ways. Stay strong in the pit, make adjustments in the pit, realize you're still loved in the pit, be faithful in the pit, gradually climb out of the pit. Again, I'll reiterate, I didn't say jump out of the pit. I didn't say climb out fast. I say gradually climb out of the pit. There are lessons to be learned in the pit. And lastly, forgive those who hurt you. It's the best thing you can do. So if you are experiencing a pit experience right now, I hope this helps you. And when you do, I hope you hang on to some of these things that will help you get back on track. Now, the good news, I've experienced the good news. 1 year after I was thrown into the pit and worked my way out of the pit, gaining experience from the pit and gaining counsel from those Christian people who have been in the pit themselves. That's kind of funny because I teach a class on eagles, the American bald eagle, and eagles go through a moping period in their life somewhere in their they live to be 70 years of age on average. They go through a moping period around 35 to 40 years of age, and other eagles come by and drop fresh meat and squawk at them to help them get out of the moping period. The same thing happens to us. If you've already went through a pit experience, you can help other people get out of the pit. That's an advantage. So a lot of people who had been in the pit helped me get out of the pit. They gave me good counsel. They gave me good books to read. They gave me a devotional to read, a World War II devotional that was issued to all going into combat. All the troops going into combat had one of these books given to them, and it's a annual yearly devotional, and it really helps me. I read it every day. It's amazing how 1942 can relate to today, but it does, and it's all based on biblical devotions for each day. But anyway, we came through strong. We've hired stronger people. We've increased our customer base over what we lost substantially. Many that quit our company has come back to us customer base wise. We've had other groups come to us and say, we would love for you to support us. And we're doing well with that. They're great organizations, and many of them are Christian-based organizations. So we're happy to be supporting them. And lastly, we broke revenue records at McAfee Heating and Air in June of this year. 1 year later, being thrown into the pit. 1 year later, we break revenue records for the month. And I had to look at that sign in my office and say the comeback is always stronger than the setback. And I'm so glad. Hope this helps. Have a great day and carry on.